Hello, welcome to Dream Visions Radio YouTube live channel. I'm Mary O'Malley, and I am the host of Dream Visions Radio show, What's in Your Way is the Way. And I'm so glad to be exploring with you tonight. So, I would like to explore living in the now. You know, we even hear that and it just feels deliciously wonderful. It feels like all the now contains all the ease and the peace we long for. But I can't tell you how many people have come to me over the years and saying, "Oh, Mary, I don't know how to live in the now, or I don't do living in the now very well. You know, please help me live in the now." There's one really major difficulty with that. You can't try to live in the now because you already are in the now. And any trying separates you from the now. The other difficulty is that we have an extremely romanticized version of the now. I mean, it's gotten so strong that you see it in advertising. If you just buy this car, it will help you live in the now. And or you go to this meditation retreat, and it will show you how to live in the now. So much struggle. So I describe this in my book, What's in the Way is the Way. I started with a metaphor, the meadow metaphor. And here is the most beautiful meadow. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I used to backpack a lot up on Mount Rainier. And oh my God, the meadows were so beautiful. And so imagine a meadow. Even if you've never been in one, imagine a picture of a meadow with the babbling brook and the little marmots and the wildflowers, and the sound of the birds and the beauty of the mountains, the crispness of the air. Now, that meadow represents the now. And you lived in the now when you were young. You weren't aware of it. You just were here. Have you been with a babe lately? We had a 5-month-old come and visit us in one of my groups a couple of weeks ago. And it was such a joy because he was so here and so fascinated and so just glued to whatever was happening around him until he got hungry, and then he started to fuss. So here we are. We all lived in that place where there were no thoughts in our head. We didn't perceive life as a thought. That's what most of us do. I love the quote from Alan Watts, the wonderful Zen philosopher. No matter how many times you can say the word water, it will never be wet. So when you were very young, there was no ideas about flowers or marmots or birds or your mother or your brother or your rattle or your bottle. It just was isness. But all of us are destined to take on what I call the conditioned self. Eckhart Tolle calls it the mind made me. I love that. Your mind made a me that talks in your head all day long. The spokesperson for the conditioned self, I call it the storyteller. And it tells all sorts of stories. So get this sense that my hands are pure openness here. And then as I was growing up, as you were growing up, slowly and surely, oh, I am a girl. Oh, my name is Joan. Oh, I'm a good girl when I do this. I'm a bad girl when I do this. And slowly and surely, this self-image began to fill us up. And without even being aware of it, we began to slip out of a direct experience of life into one where it's a secondhand experience of life, to where we are thinking about life rather than actually being here for it. So this is when you're about 6, the mind made me, the conditioned self is pretty well formed, and then slowly and surely you go to school and it begins to become stronger. And then here is teenagehood. And I don't know if you can see my eyes, but I'm starting to pay attention more to the fingers. I can still really intimately be here for life. But then I start, oh my God, I have a pimple, And then slowly and surely, as we move into, well, for some people it's in teenagehood, but for most people it's like early adulthood. We just are cut off from life. There's a veil between us and the living experience of life. So let's get back to the meadow. In the meadow, everything flows. Everything flows in the meadow. The brook flows. The clouds flow through the sky. Sound waves flow. Light waves flow. Day flows into night. Winter into spring. And so here we were, present for this ever-changing flow called life. We didn't try to hold on to it. We didn't try to push it away until we learned how to be exclusively in our heads. So imagine the clouds going across the sky begin to lower and lower and lower and lower. And pretty soon, they're just whirling and swirling around you. The key to this metaphor is you've never left the meadow. The now is always and eternally here. You just think you've left the now. And in this wonderful metaphor, we are given 2 things. Number one, a butterfly net. And we are told that if you just collect these certain butterflies, then everything will be okay. If you become the popular kid at school, if you get good grades, if you find your soulmate, if you make a lot of money, if you get the fancier new car, if you have lots of liposuction and plastic surgery. So just imagine yourself careening around the meadow with a butterfly net, trying to catch hold of what you think will bring you the peace that you long for, the peace of being in the now. And so we're also given a fly swatter, and this is to get rid of anything we don't like. We don't like our mate and burps, when we're out at, having dinner, or we don't like that we're not kind enough. I've got to be kinder. Or we don't like that we speak too much. So, we try to corral, how much we speak. So I want you to imagine a alien coming from another planet, and his job is to land on planet Earth and just observe human beings, and then come back to the planet and tell his fellow people what he saw. So can you imagine this Martian landing on the planet, and he lands right next to your meadow, and here he sees is this cloud bank. And all he can see is the hand sticking out with a butterfly net, and another one with a swatter careening around the meadow, always trying to get to what it wants and get away from what we don't want. That's what it's like to live inside of our minds. Now, I am not knocking our minds. It only took the universe 13.8 billion years to figure out how to make them. And they are exquisite tools for maneuvering through reality. We need them, but they're not reality. Your reality is not the thoughts in your head. They are pointers to life. They are not the actual living experience. So a good example is if you get an image of an apple. Can you eat the image of an apple? No. So our thoughts about life, being exclusively caught in them, keep us cut off from being fully here, fully alive. So what do we do with that? We go into management mode. And if you look at most all of our self-help, our therapy, and even our spirituality, it's all about what I call management. If you do this, then this will happen. And in watching my mind a lot over the years and hearing other people's hearts and minds, all that does is keep you lost in an endless cycle of struggle. You may get what you want, but then it begins to fade away. The new car, and then it gets scratched at a parking lot, or somebody spills a milkshake in the middle of, of your back seat or whatever. And so here we are, we're constantly trying to be someplace else. So we lose the connection, the intimate, alive connection with life we long for. And my experience is that, longing for a soulmate, or longing for a better job, or longing for nicer children, what you really long for is an alive and intimate connection with life here and now. But as we explored earlier, you can't try to get here, because that is just more struggle in your head. So there's another metaphor. I love metaphors because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so imagine a room, and imagine a locked room, and it has 1,000 doors. And whether you can see it, you live, well, I was going to call it a prison, but it really is a locked room. And there's a lot of things, fun things you can do in this locked room, but it's never really touches that deep longing. So when all of those kind of fade away, or you see they don't bring you the longing of connection that you really want, you try one of those 1,000 doors, and you end up trying 999 of those doors 1,000 times at least. And one of three things happen. First, the door's locked. It just doesn't, you try to lose weight and you gain weight, The next is that you open the door and there's a brick wall. You met a man at a bar and he was just so wonderful, and you really felt really good about that. And the third time you were with him, you find out he's married. Yeah. And the third thing that happens is that you open the door and you walk out of the room and into the same room. So I call this room the room of struggle. And this is where we live most all the time, including trying to get in the now. It's the new must have. So you usually come into what I offer to the world after you've tried all those doors many, many times. And it doesn't bring you the peace and the healing you long for, because it doesn't. I offer the world of engagement. So in that room, over there, dark corner, very tiny little door. And written on that door, all you can see, because it's dark over there, is HE. And that's the door to hell. And so you have tried all these doors many, many times. And so one day, sitting in the middle of the room, you think, God, hell has got to be better than this. And you go over and you sit down in front of that door, and you see what's written there is HERE, here. And the mind goes, oh, I want that. But then the mind says, well, it's too little. I can't, I won't ever get out of this room. I can't fit through the door, for heaven's sakes. But you say, well, I'm going to invite myself more and more just to be here, not trying to get here, but actually being here. And so you stick a finger in the door and it begins to expand. And you stick a hand and it expands more. And you stick an arm and the other arm in your head. And the key to this metaphor is that you never walk through that door, because the room of struggle just dissolves. You become more and more like that babe, just here for life. But here in a different way. The babe can't be here in the way that you can be here, a conscious human being. So what we usually do is just get the piece, I have to be here, okay? And so what we do is, let's say it's our meditation, and we think, okay, now I've learned from this man that, if I, make myself be here, then I will be able to rest in the now. And so your meditation is now becoming a struggle. And you rest in the now, you come into the now, and then you just get jerked away, by your thoughts. And then you come back and you get jerked away. And that's how I was for almost 11 years. I started meditating, I think, in the late 70s. And I was a closet failure at meditation. And, I don't even use the word meditation very much anymore, because it's one of those loaded words that has so much have to in them. And so I call it a returning practice, a returning to this moment, or a listening practice, actually listening to what is here right now. And as you do that more and more, you begin to listen to what is happening inside of you. So, what does this look like? So, I invite you to close your eyes for a few moments and allow some long, slow, deep out breaths. And you can even add the vibration of the heart chakra. Ah. Ah. Oh, allowing your shoulders to let go, allowing your belly to let go. Oh. The reason why this is so powerful, it's one of the quickest ways to calm the storyteller in our head. Oh. Now, pull your attention out of your stories and bring it into the sounds around you. There's many, many sounds, loud sounds, the sound of my voice, the heater going on in your room, sounds far away, an airplane flying overhead, or the birds outside. And for 30 seconds, I invite you to put your attention on the sounds. Listen to your life. Each sound is totally brand new, never to be heard this way before or again. And if your mind doesn't know how to do this, count how many sounds you can hear. So let's do this for 30 seconds. Now let that go and open your eyes. One of three things happen. The first is your mind didn't even want to do it. It didn't even close your eyes, and that's okay. Your mind may have tried to do it and struggled with it, and that's okay. Or you may have really found your way here. And then to have your mind take your attention back over again and then come back. Neither one of these are better than the other. The first one just shows you how much you live in your mind, how much the mind is afraid of actually being present for life. The second one, you can begin to see how much the mind struggles. It's always trying, secretly trying to do life better and doesn't want anybody to know that it's not doing it good enough. And I say that from having worked with people for over 30 years. And I've seen in the minds of hearts from everybody from CEOs to women that stay home with their children, to therapists, to teenagers, to homeless people. And all of us have this storyteller, or what Eckhart calls the mind made me. Ram Dass calls it somebody. We all go into somebody training. We have to be somebody. And it definitely has to be better or different than what we are. And so what I also want you to notice in this time of listening is that there is life, and then there is your story about life. Such a big difference. Most people go to their deathbeds caught in their story. Stephen Levine, who is my main mentor, who I had the good grace to be with him a lot in the 80s and early 90s. He wrote many books on death and dying, but he really wrote about how to be fully alive. He said, my main teachers about how to be fully alive were 2 Tibetan lamas and thousands of people on their deathbeds. And he talked once about a 93-year-old woman that was on her deathbed, and she said it can't end now because it hasn't started yet. So whether you're aware of it or not, most of the time you experience life through your thoughts. And that's why I like Alan Watts' quote so much. No matter how many times you say the word water, it will never be wet. And so to begin to see that without judgment, to know that most human beings are lost in their mind, and all you have to do is look at the evening news or history and to see what that brings forth. And so here we are together. I invited you for a few moments to pull your attention out of your stories about life and actually be here for life. And be not dismayed about how fast the mind will pull your attention back. You know, you hear the sound of a car going by, and all of a sudden you remember that you haven't changed your oil in 4 months, you know, and you're busy in your mind making your appointment. You know, I'm going to see, can I do it on Thursday or can I do it on Friday? All the while, you have missed life. So I want to give you a deeper experience of this, and I really invite you to do this with me. So I want you to take your finger, and I want you just to go for the gusto and just go all around with your finger and follow it with your whole being as much as you can. Just follow, 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 follow. Okay, so that represents, the finger represents the 65,000 thoughts we have a day. And we just tumble from one thought to another until, you know, maybe something really amazing like the birth of our baby, or a really wonderful orgasm, or the most exquisite sunset pulls you out of your thoughts. And then if you watch carefully, the mind will say, oh my God, how can I recreate this again? I want more of this. And then the veil comes back again. So what we just did with listening was this. So take the finger again and really follow it and just really get lost in it. Now, lift your attention out. Keep the finger going, but see something in front of you. Really see it. And then get lost in your thoughts again. And then bring your attention back. And really see it. And then get lost in your thoughts again. So that, the power of beginning to see that life is and always will be. Life is constantly changing. It's a river of creativity. And what we did with the listening was dip the finger of your attention into this river of creativity. And, you know, that's what people call living in the now. But you can't try to be there. That is just more mind. I did it, you know, for 11 years. I was a failure at meditation. And then I met Stephen. And I share with him my difficulty. I just have the most untamed mind. I was at war with my mind. I now got the idea, my newest, latest, you know, want is to live in the now. And I wasn't doing it very well. And Stephen said something to me that was so powerful. He said, if you sit for an hour and bring your focus back to your attention one time in that hour, that is time well spent. That just blew me away. It changed my life. All of a sudden, not only meditation, but my life wasn't a contest trying to get to where I thought I should be. I began instead to become curious about right I was. Now, this is not the kind of curiosity most people think of, you know, why is this here? You know, where did it come from? No. This is the kind of curiosity where you're interested in what is right now. So we begin by giving ourselves the gift of a few minutes every day that we pull our attention out of our stories and we actually experience life. And do not be dismayed about how hard that is at the beginning. But, you know, maybe you sit, or maybe you, you know, do Qigong and realize that most of the time you're thinking about, you know, what you're doing rather than actually being present for the movement of your arm. Or it could be your morning cup of tea. We begin to use our mind to connect with life. When you have had enough of an experience like that, then you begin to become fascinated with what takes you away. And that's where what we can do to open ourselves into the now. We can begin to see, get to know those clouds, the clouds that completely surround us in the meadow metaphor, the clouds of fear. And I'm not talking about, I'm so afraid. I'm talking about just unease about the stoplight is too long, or there's a spot on our shirt, or it could, you know, get even stronger with, you know, the fear of not performing well at a meeting at work, and then it can become into real strong fear because we just got a terminal diagnosis. What Stephen taught me was how to relate to the stories in my head rather than from them. So I could use my mind for the exquisite tool it is for maneuvering through reality. But I saw now it wasn't reality. And I could learn how to use my mind rather than being lost in it. So this, what we're talking about now, is when you've done this enough, and you really notice there's life, and then there's their story about life, and then there's life, and then a story about life. Then, and I don't know if you can see it with my eyes, Now my focus is watching the finger. You see, I'm not just lost in it. I'm actually becoming interested in what takes me away. So I think it would be good to just give an example out of my life that, um, I had that kind of childhood you wouldn't wish on anybody. And, I just spiraled down into ever greater levels of darkness and despair. I call it my no way out place, where you're just completely helpless and hopeless. Because my mother saw that I was gone when I was 10, and she started me with a psychiatrist, then turned into psychologist, and then therapist and group therapy and medications and hospitals. And then I learned to self-medicate because none of that worked. And all I heard was, oh, there's something wrong with me. And that's all I could feel. I was in the prison that there was something wrong with me. And of course, I've been self-medicating since I was about 10 with food. And then when I went away to college, I added alcohol to it. And then when I left college, I added street drugs to it. And I even gained 97 pounds in a year once, trying to get away from the conditioning, from all the stories in my head that I took on when I was very little. So did you. The stories of fear, the stories of sadness, the stories of aloneness, the stories of irritation and anger, the stories of shame and guilt, the secret sense that I'm not enough and I'll never be enough and I don't want anybody to know that. And when all my self-medicating and all of the doctors and therapists and psychologists, et cetera, didn't really work. In fact, it sent me deeper into the land of darkness. I tried to kill myself 3 times. Then, when I was 27, this was a couple of years, I think about 2.5, I have a hard time going back to that time because it was just such a blur. I have a hard time finding exact dates. But I do know the year when a teacher came into my life. And my mother was going to a yoga weekend, and she all of a sudden couldn't go. And she said, "Well, do you want to go?" And I kind of went, "Oh, well, okay, And I go in there, and this man starts talking. He had come up from California. His name was Joel Kramer. And all I knew was my life changed. From a B-grade black and white grainy horror movie to a surround sound Technicolor Panavision movie. And yet I couldn't tell you what he said when I went out. All I knew was that I was hearing something new, and it felt like the truth. And what he taught me was, there's nothing you need to fix. There's nothing you need to change. That's just an endless game. Instead, he said, in the seeing is the movement. In other words, when I could not run away from my fear or my not enoughness or my boredom or my itchy skin, when I could have moments that I went towards it, that I actually brought it the light of my attention, whatever it was that I was formerly trying to run away from began to dissolve. Although you can't go there with your attention trying to dissolve it. But that power of dipping the finger of my attention into the river of my own experience, I began to be able to see. I call it look to unhook. I began to be able to recognize when I was caught in my head, and more exactly what my storyteller was talking about. At the beginning, I couldn't have told you. I was talking to a woman that is the other day that is very anxious and has gained a lot of weight because she has a lot of stress at work, and she just eats a lot of potato chips. And she said, well, you say my mind is based on fear, but I'm not afraid. You know, so fear is not, this, fear is this constant sense of unease that sometimes flares up into bigger things. And so to begin to be able to actually say hello to my fear, to befriend my fear, to actually begin to say hello to my deep, deep shame. And believe you me, it was so deep. I once broke my own arm because I was drunk and I was mad at myself. And I went to hit a bed, and there was a board across the four-poster bed underneath the duvet cover. And I just hit it until I passed out and woke up the next morning with a football for an arm. So I know what it's like to be really, really caught in the mind. And I know that all of my mind states, I call them spells in this, my new book, What's in the Way is the Way, because I love the word spells. It's something laid over the top of you. It's not true, and it can be lifted. I was taught to be desperately afraid of life. And now I am grounded and open. Do I get caught sometime back in my story? Yeah. I am a human being. I think as long as you're in a body, you will still have moments. You'll have your edge. I think it was Trungpa Rinpoche, Pema Chodron's teacher, the wonderful Buddhist nun, that said, this whole journey is about finding your edge and softening. So I began to become curious. So when I sat in the morning, it wasn't trying to get someplace else. It was grounding myself here enough that I could begin to see what was happening inside of me. Well, when I first started meditating, it was for 10 years before I met Stephen. At the beginning, I couldn't even close my eyes. It was way too intimate, was way too scary to be here with myself, because I had tried to run away through drugs and food and alcohol and busyness and then suicide. But slowly and surely I discovered that there was nothing to be ashamed of and nothing to be afraid of inside of me. And that the safest thing you'll ever do is learn the art of engagement. Engagement doesn't want to fix anything, change anything, rearrange anything, get rid of anything, rise above anything. Engagement is interested. And it was just so amazing. And, I'm looking back on it, it was quite a roller coaster ride, because I had lived in this struggling self that went so far to, that it made sense to this storyteller in my head that I didn't deserve to die, and so it was pretty strong. But it was like putting together, one of those big picture puzzles. And every moment, it's like Stephen said, if you sit for an hour and bring your attention back to your hour one time, that's why time well spent. Why? Because you're actually here. And of course you're going to go away. But the more you're here, the more you begin to strengthen the muscle of your awareness. And the more you strengthen the muscle of your awareness, the easier it becomes, and I call this the pauses that refresh, the easier it becomes, even in the middle of a busy life, to just pause for a moment. Maybe when you're washing your hands, and all of a sudden past and future go away, and you're just there with the sound of the water, the feel of it on your hands, the smell of the soap. Or maybe it is you taste the first 3 bites of your sandwich, as you eat lunch. Or maybe it is, you begin to gift yourself with a pause at every stoplight when you're driving, and you allow one of those long, slow out breaths. Slowly and surely, we really begin to deepen this knowing that there's life, there's the now, and then there is our stories about life. And that's when you begin to become fascinated. That is when you sit and want to see what is here. You want to learn the art of saying hello to what is here rather than pushing it away or wishing it to be different, or even doing a meditation that promises to get you to great peace. And we can do that at times. And yet we always come back to this storyteller in our head that talks all day long, that wants us in life to be different than what it is. And it was so amazing because it took time. This is like learning how to walk. This is learning the language of the aware heart. And it's like when you're a babe and your muscles in your legs aren't very strong, and so you have to stand up and take a couple of steps along the couch, and and then fall down and stand up and fall down. And every time you do that, you strengthen your muscle. Just like every time you pull your attention out of your stories and you come here, then you are strengthening the muscle. But of course you're going to go away. But what I am offering is get to know what takes you away. And believe you me, it's very young when you really start listening to it. You really start looking at it. I call my conditioned self little one. And oh my goodness, she is so scared. And if I get really tired and there's something very challenging happening to one of my children and I have a deadline and I'm not feeling very well, it takes a lot to get me contracted. But I'll slip back in to the storyteller. But I'm a tightness detective because I have been here, grounded, open, engaged with life the moment it appears out of mystery enough that I can see the difference, that when I'm here, energy flows, just like in that meadow. Everything flows. It flows through my body, it flows through my heart, it flows through my mind. And I am an intimate part of the creative flow of life. And then when the storyteller takes over again, whether it's in fear or irritation or not enoughness or boredom, although I don't get boredom at all anymore. I am so fascinated by life. But it could be an aching back. It could be a very difficult telephone call with a loved one. And your mind is just racing when you get off the call. I assure you, there's not one challenge that life will be giving you that you can't discover slowly and surely. We don't go to the big guns first. It took me a lot of time to get close to the state of dread and then finally befriend it. So now, from a mental hospital to traveling the world, I did that through the art of compassionate curiosity, the art of being able to meet myself as I am. And as you do that, the laser beam of your attention becomes just like the morning sun that burns the fog. And it doesn't, burning isn't a good way, it lifts the fog because you don't burn anything inside of you. As you learn how to turn towards and be present for your own experience, no matter what it is, slowly and surely, your attention becomes like a laser beam. And it allows these contracted places, these places that have been holding your whole life, to begin to soften and open. And more, the clouds are cleared. And you're back in the meadow of the now. So give yourself the gift of at least a few minutes every day of choosing a focus and coming back to it. You don't have to sit. You can walk, do qigong. You could do it eating your sandwich. Consciously choose just a couple of minutes. Consistency is far more important than quantity. And if this really interests you in what's in the way is the way, there is a 10-week process that takes you through this from the very basic to then the grounded and the openness. And of course, there's my radio show on Dream Vision 7 And it has many, many previous shows that you can go and listen to at any time, so that you can refresh yourself with this language of learning how to engage with your life rather than always managing it. And I thank you. I thank you for all the children that are coming after us, because a human being that has learned, even for a few moments, to pull their attention out of the struggling self and be here for life. The more you are here, the more there is no way that you can cause harm to yourself, to another, to the earth itself. And on this beleaguered planet, we need more and more people that are coming home, that are engaging with life as it is. So be willing to see what takes you away. Love it. Bring it home to your heart, so you too can know more and more the engagement with life exactly as it is right now. If you want to know more, you can visit my website, maryo'malley.com. I have a blog. I do Skype counseling. I do classes online. I'm going to be doing a new class on my book, The Gift of Our Compulsions, at the beginning of 2018. So thank you again. And for all the world, I say namaste.